Okay, hopefully everybody can hear us okay. Good morning and welcome to Professional Liverpool's Future of the Region series. As we're coming out of lockdown, we're feeling a little bit more confident that we'll be able to start producing more face-to-face. So this will hopefully be the last few Zooms. I'm sure we're all feeling fairly zoomed out over the last 12 months. I'm Mark Davis from Professional Liverpool and K2 Architects, and I will be hosting this morning's conversation with Torus. I am delighted to welcome our two speakers today from Torus. We've got Peter Fieldsend, who is the Chief Financial Officer at Torus, and Peter will be sharing the future vision of where Torus are going to be going in terms of their community engagement and the offer that they're going to be presenting here in the City Region. And then I'll be handing over to Kate Ellison, who is Director of Housing, Growth and Partnerships at Torus. And Kate's going to start to talk a little bit around some of the projects which Torus are involved in, community-based projects, in particular Melwood. Hopefully Kate can give us an update on how that is progressing. In terms of a bit of housekeeping, if anybody has any questions, you can hit the question button online, and we'll pick up the questions after the two presentations from Peter and Kate. So without further ado, I shall hand over to Peter, who's going to talk us through growing stronger communities and the engagement work he's been doing at Torus. Peter, it's over to you.
Thanks, Mark. Morning, everybody. I'll just share my screen and go through a brief presentation. Just hopefully that's okay. Just telling everyone a little bit about us before I hand over to Kate. So basically, housing growth and regeneration is what we're about. Just if I'll briefly explain the group. So from this diagram here, hopefully you can see that our heartlands are at the centre of our group. And our heartlands consist of Warrington, St Helens and Liverpool, which is where we've got most of our stock. Above that, so we've got our Great Homes, which is about delivering a landlord plus offer. We're fundamentally a landlord, and we wouldn't see that changing. To the side of that, we've got commercial contracting. So we have a commercial subsidiary that's run on a commercial grounds, which is HMS, which delivers contracting services, including development, and it gift aids all of its profits back to the group, primarily to the Torus Foundation, which is our charitable subsidiary, which more of a little bit later. Across from that, we've got ambitious developments, which is where we primarily where we deliver most of our developments. We've got significant development ambitions, and we deliver those right across the region. And then below that, you can see how the funds are circulated. We've got strong communities. Now, this is about doing more than just houses and adding more to making sure our communities are strong, thriving, vibrant places. And this is generally delivered through our Torus Foundation, which is our charitable subsidiary. So it's really saying that we're not just about delivering houses, although we're fundamentally a landlord. A little bit about the numbers. So we've 40,000 homes. We've 33,000 general needs homes, which is the vast majority of our stock, as you can see. We've 3,500 homes for older people, 1,100 homes for future home ownership or shared ownership, and we've 650 supported living homes. As I said earlier, we've got our 3 heartlands, although we are active in 11 local authority areas, mainly those that are within our heartlands and immediately surrounding our heartlands. We've got, we plan to deliver 5,600 new homes over the next 5 years, which is a significant programme across the region. So numbers are important to us. But again, hopefully we'll come on to a little bit later. It's not just about numbers, even though they are important to us. So we deliver over £100 million of annual investment in existing and new homes. And we've got over 7,500 people engaged in social projects every year. So defining our mission, there's 6 ways really, or 6 words, I guess, that we use to define our mission. And there they are on the screen. So we've got safe, which everything starts with safety, but in the home, in our neighborhoods. Inclusive, extremely important to us. We've got very diverse communities. Sustainable, so we seek integrated solutions that enhance local environments and economies. Healthy, places that support healthy behaviours and choices and help our residents to thrive. Connected, effective digital and human connections, essential part of what we see in our communities. And aspirational, again, strong communities in place where people can grow to reach their full potential. So hopefully this kind of shows our depth as well as our scale. And finally, what it's all about really for us is growing stronger communities. So we've a new corporate plan launching May 21, which outlines our commitment to supporting our tenants, communities, partners and the region, which is very important to us. And we believe, which will come out hopefully later, in a collaborative approach. So when people work together, great things happen. And I think I'll stop sharing there and hopefully hand over to Kate.
Thanks, Peter. So, morning everyone. Hopefully this will be a seamless transition. Let me just try and share the screen. Okay. Can everyone see that?
Yeah, that's fine, Kate. We can see that.
Yeah, great. Okay, so just to start off really, as Mark mentioned earlier, we will be talking about homes of the regions of the future and a bit of a focus on our Melwood development. But first off, thought it was worthwhile just giving you an overview, if you don't know, to Torus and what we do in terms of the developments, and following on from the overview Peter just give then. So we're just giving you a really quick snapshot of what our development programme is really. So as you can see from this slide, which should have the map on, it's at any given point in time really our programme is about 2,000 units on site and another 1,500 to 2,000 in the pipeline. We generally have anything between 32 and 40 sites active at any one time, and a further 20 kind of in pre-contract stage. Got lots of big strategic opportunities as well that we're looking at within the development pipeline, and some of them are kind of 5 to 10 years ahead. So we'll have lots of smaller developments that are, you know, kind of immediate future in the business plan period. There's lots of long-term stuff as well, planning several business plan periods. And then we are active in 10 local authorities. So as Peter said, our heartlands are a big focus for us. So Liverpool, St Helens and Warrington. And as you can see from the map there and the key, you know, you can see where the natural clusters of development are around Warrington, St Helens, Liverpool, Wirral, all in the neighbouring local authorities. But then you can see the kind of programme has grown and grown, and we are like down as far as the Greater Manchester boundary now with Cheshire East, and then as far up as Preston really, so not quite into Preston, just below it. So we've got an approved business plan to deliver 9,000 homes till 2029, and we're also a strategic partner to Homes England. So in terms of what we develop, I think, you know, core of our business really is delivering affordable housing. That's not always in the form of affordable rent. affordable rent is about 45% of what we do, and then the programme is split between rent to buy and shared ownership. So we promote affordable home ownership quite heavily within the programme, and we've been developing that successfully now for a number of years. Specialist accommodation is a big focus for us as well, as Peter said, and sales and PRS and the kind of market tenures are becoming a small but growing part of our programme. And I think, you know, that's a real kind of diverse mix of property types and products, and it's really good to have that within the portfolio. So when we are looking at kind of creating and enhancing communities and the placemaking aspects, we are kind of drawing on lots of different products to create, you know, the right community and bring the right people in. I think partnerships is also key to that, as you'll see as we go on. So obviously Peter touched on the group corporate plan and the key themes of it: intelligence, influence, investment and resilience. I think they carry through into the development strategy, and we've kind of captured the kind of key driving principles there. So transformational developments, regenerating and strengthening existing communities, and I'd say creating new. Placemaking and place shaping is at the core of what we do, and then that kind of portfolio of different products, which means we can create truly mixed tenure developments, and that's often multi-generational as well, with, you know, an extra care sitting within a large development scheme of family housing and other tenure types. And I think the last one, which is becoming a massive focus at the moment, is quality, sustainable homes for all. So just moving on now to what that actually looks like in a development. There's just a selection of different schemes that are at different stages at the moment. So I'll just run through these quite quickly, but obviously if there's any specific questions we can pick up at the end. So Academy Way in Warrington, quite a big rent to buy scheme, which is centre of Warrington town centre. Part of a much bigger kind of master plan, this scheme. We've got another scheme that's just completed on site within the same area. And we've also land banked a site and are in the process of assembling some other sites that we will bring forward over the next 5 to 10 years. Ground floor commercial units in this as well. And this is quite advanced, this one. So we are expecting handovers to start this year. Foundry Wharf, so this is St Helens, and this is quite a large extra care scheme, which is just around the corner from our St Helens office. So again, you know, heartlands are a big focus, and extra care tends to be, and the specialist accommodation tends to be in them areas. This completed in March 2021. Probably lots of you have seen this site anyway, over the last year, 18 months. It's a 64 unit scheme in Baltic called the Vaults. We are just starting to market this at the moment. That's not the most up-to-date image. You get some amazing views from the scheme as well on the top floors. Again, this is rent to buy really, because we are looking at you know, that particular market within this area. There's been lots of demand. And I think, you know, the product type, there's lots of apartments in Baltic, and this is kind of larger than most of them that are being marketed at the moment, kind of double bedrooms, en suites, so that we're attracting, you know, a different market to what some of the other smaller studio schemes are doing. And again, commercial units, really important from a placemaking point of view, that we have that activity on the ground floor, and we're encouraging that kind of wider integration with the everything else in the area as well, and the linkages through different street scenes. So looking forward to seeing this one progress, and that's scheduled for completion Q4 2022, so not far off. Again, lots will have seen this site, so this is really high profile site for us, kind of the gateway in and out of Liverpool, through the tortuous Edge Lane. So 145 homes, again, a real mix of tenures there. Unprecedented demand for this development. You know, again, the product is right. It's them larger apartments outside of the centre, 100% car park, and some really kind of innovatively designed shared ownership properties as well. really nice bright spaces. So really pleased with this development. It's took a bit longer than hoped, but it's getting there now. And then Rock Ferry, Birkenhead. So this is, you can see within the centre of the site there, we've got a listed building being converted into apartments, large extra care scheme, and then a mix of different family housing for affordable rent and shared ownership. So again, another really exciting scheme. And I think, you know, it's just all of these schemes are really embodying them development principles we talked about earlier, with transformational development, placemaking, creating and enhancing communities, and that real mix of tenures and multi-generational development, which helps with the placemaking and the people aspect. So this is a 260 unit site in Ellesmere Port. We are developing half of the site with rent to buy, shared ownership and affordable rent. And the reason we've included this is it's a really important site in terms of partnership working. So we acquired this site a number of years ago, and we were intending to develop a big chunk of outright sale. We ended up partnering with essentially another developer who is more experienced in providing outright sale, and they're basically, you know, providing the market tenures and we're providing the affordable. So partnerships worked well, and it's yeah, it's a bit of a way off, but we are expecting the first homes this year. And then just moving on to some pipeline schemes really. So again, you know, real focus on design, place, contextual design, making the most of its riverside location. So this is just opposite the Titanic Hotel. It's in full planning at the moment. We are just at the final stage of making some amendments. But this will be, you know, the first and hopefully a big catalyst new build scheme for the 10 Streets regeneration area. Obviously, you've got the tobacco warehouse in the process of being converted now, Titanic and a number of other developments starting to pop up. So again, you know, this is what we're all about as an organisation, really. It's them early catalysts that are then driving regeneration within the area. And then Flowers Lane, a 400 unit scheme in Crewe. So our first big commitment in Cheshire East, really. And as you can see, again, you know, that mixed tenure, there will be a significant element of open market sales on this site, given the timescales over which it'll be developed and the scale of the site. That seems really appropriate. A big focus on the kinds of green spaces and how that site interacts with the surrounding area as well. So again, hoping to be on site this financial year with that scheme. And then lastly, Melwood, which is, we are currently looking at around 150 new homes, but we are just finalising the layout at the moment. So it'll be an extra care development, which you can just see in the corner image there, and then a mix of family accommodation. And I think, you know, in terms of them development principles we set out at the start, this is really, these images hopefully capture that. So we've got a real focus on the public realm and the street scene, an environment that kind of drives cultural change. You know, it's a street scene you can see yourself walking in, cycling in, choosing not to use the car. We've tried to make people focused kind of streets and take the cars off the street scene. So the parking's all integrated and kind of enclosed behind these walls. Home zone layout, so naturally it's encouraging kind of slower pace of traffic. And we've also got these sud strips as well, which are a really important feature for this site. Obviously, flood risk is becoming a huge issue now, and certainly in this area where the existing infrastructure is struggling to deal with increasing flood pressures. And then the design of properties as well, it's all about creating that interaction within the street scene. As I say, just the real people-focused, active environment. So really pushing the boundaries with this design and some of the principles around sustainability as well. So happy to take any questions on that later. And then I think the other thing you may have seen recently just on Melwood is that you know, the legacy beyond football and the announcement of the partnership. on Friday. So basically, Torus have partnered with the Robbie Fowler, Jamie Carragher Academy and Sporting House to create an educational and sporting facility at the site. And that will be integrated into the development proposals with a green boulevard kind of linking that in with the existing site, and that kind of consistent street seen throughout. And it'll open onto a nice public open square. I'm not able to share any plans on this at the moment because we're just, you know, the partnership was announced Friday and we are still working through the impacts on the layout of retaining the football pitch to the rear of the site. You know, it would be in terms of kind of enhancing existing communities. You know, this is a really big focus for us on this site, is bringing all that together really in one site. The community will have access to the building. You know, local children will be able to use the facility as an educational facility, and it'll just really enhance the overall development as well. So that's the end of the slides. I'll just try and get back and stop sharing screen.
And thank you very much, Kate and Peter, for your presentations. I don't think I've ever seen Steve Coffey, your CEO, look so happy stood next to Robbie Fowler and Jamie Carragher on that last image.
Yeah.
A really good overview from you both there, because historically, you know, when we hear the name Torus, it's always been about kind of the product, as in the housing. That's what you were historically known for. And we've had a question come in, if and I can open it to you both. Question around what differentiates Torus going forward, and in particular, Peter, what your stakeholders have fed back to you in the corporate plan. So perhaps an overview of who you've spoke to arrive at the new corporate plan, and what differentiates Torus now going forward.
I think, well, we're not unique as a housing association, although we do operate at scale, as I hope you can see. I think where we are perhaps slightly different in that we're very much, whilst operating at scale, we are grounded in our communities, and that's extremely important to us. So we've in developing our corporate plan, a very important stakeholder are our tenants. So we've had lots of feedback from our tenants in actually putting together our corporate plan. We've hopefully taken into account what's important to them. I think our operating model, whilst not unique, is a bit different, and it also, I think the scale of it is probably different. So, for example, we have our two commercial subsidiaries, Torus Developments, which most of our development program goes through, and HMS, which is our commercial contractor. Now, both of those are run on commercial grounds. They make profits as any other commercial organisation hopes to, but those profits are gift aided back to the group. So there's a virtuous circle where those profits come back into the group and support our tenants and our communities. So HMS, for example, will win external work, both development and non-development work, and will make profits as the contractor does, and all those profits are fed back. So that kind of differentiates us, I think, maybe not from other housing associations, because the model isn't unique, although it is at this scale, but from other developers and from other contractors. So it's as I say, it's not unique. It's just a little bit different, and you know, we hope it's going to work in the future for us.
And Peter, if I may, how long does the corporate plan run for? Is this a 5-10-year vision? How?
It's a 5-year vision, which we'll review it each year. So we won't just stay on that 5-year track and not move at all. So, but we have our goals where we want to hit in 5 years. Then we have our annual operational plans to take us towards those goals, which we'll review at the end of each year. And then, you know, come year 3 or 4, we'll look at our next 5-year plan.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Great, thank you, Peter. And Kate, leading on to that, we've had a question around development opportunities and how the last 12 months for you as Torus has panned out, and what the opportunity from a development point of view is looking forward this year and into the years beyond. So could you give us an overview of what you've experienced the last 12 months and what the new 12 months looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I think, last 12 months has been, challenging for everyone in the sector, really, hasn't it? So it's been really slow. We've had to adjust, going back to March 2020, we had 35 sites active and live and progressing well. And overnight, we kind of went to all but 2 sites, kind of stopping work. So, and interestingly, them 2 sites that did continue, the contractors have faced financial difficulties since. So I think, it was a really challenging time for everyone. We've had to really adapt, adapt to new ways of work and ramp up again and remobilise. I think, we generally budget to spend 200 million a year. That's our kind of live development spend on average. Last year we had to reforecast and everything else, and we basically reduced that to 99 million. And even that was pretty challenging because not only did the site stop, but they took a long time to get going again. And obviously reduced capacity, apartment schemes were affected more than housing and everything else. So I think it was really challenging from an operational perspective, lots of new ways of working with staff and everything else. I think, looking at that positively, we are a strategic partner to Homes England, and obviously mentioned within both presentations, we have a business plan to support development till 2029. So we can take, while we've had a really bad year, as everyone has, we can take a real long-term strategic view of that. Yeah. And now it's much more about, building back stronger and better, but also not being focused just on the numbers and kind of, accelerating delivery for the wrong reasons. So as Peter said, it's all about our heartlands and growth in the right areas with the right product. I think the pipeline's looking really healthy. It's really competitive out there at the moment. Land market is really difficult. But I think, we're really well aligned to local authorities and other partners that we're working as well. So we are able to just plan, 5 years to 10 years in advance and make sure, we're kind of proactive in that sense.
And thank you, Kate. And Peter, we've had an interesting one here from one of our listeners, Andrew Ruffler. And it comes back to demand. Have you seen demand change because of what we've been through with the pandemic? So that quality of apartment versus kind of a housing with more external space from your side, are you seeing your existing customers looking to change or new customers looking for more space?
Yeah, we've certainly seen that. I think the move, I think Kate alluded to there, the move perhaps away from apartment living towards houses, maybe away from the city centre, with more space, more kind of working from home space. I think in the homes that we've seen now, whether that will continue or not, we're not quite sure. But we've certainly seen the move away from there. I think just to add to what Kate said earlier, that I think numbers are important to us, obviously, because we've got a housing crisis. That's part of what we need to do, is to try and help alleviate that housing crisis. But it's about building the right homes in the right places, rather than just numbers, although we can't get away from the fact that numbers are still very important to us.
Yeah. I think just to add to that, Mark, on the kind of demand point and things, now what changes we are seeing in the market, we've been tracking this quite closely. Certainly we had an unprecedented year last year for shared ownership, so we sold more properties than we have in any other year that we've been operating our sales programme. As Peter said, we are definitely seeing a shift in what people are looking for. Our apartments are generally doing okay because the space standards and things, when I think these 2 things that have been become really important. It's the area you live in and, access to parks and open space and just the environmental quality of that area and the facilities you have to hand. And then I think it's also your internal area. And as Peter said, a lot more homeowners are looking at, a space where they can work at home without, you know, being in the main property and everything else and having the kids there. So we are seeing a lot more focus on internal spaces when people are looking to purchase. We're trialing some products at Melwood, which are kind of post-COVID design principles. And again, that, you know, the environmental quality of the development is being shaped around, you know, never is that kind of immediate 1 mile of where you live being so important as it is now.
Yeah, interesting that, with my architect hat on, you know, future-proofing your product and that flexibility of being able to work at home, grow the home, contract the home. And I just wonder, with a question back from me, is how are you looking forward with that in terms of the product Torus are delivering, in terms of the whole sustainable homes piece, flexibility at home? What work are you doing your side with your tenants to try and address that, which is an ongoing national problem?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of the new build development side, we are looking at, you know, specifications become a big one. Obviously, everyone's found the Wi-Fi doesn't work in the back bedroom in the corner of the house, which is the only quiet spot and everything else. So we're looking at specification, as say, the design of layout, but I should say a big piece of that is also around education. And the location of development in the first place, and, you know, how close that is to, I think, you know, while the town city centres have really suffered, town centres and high streets have seen a bit of a rebirth. And, you know, that immediate area in which people live has become much more important.
Yeah, I'd echo that. Peter, anything from your side to add to Kate's comments?
No, just in complete agreement with what Kate's saying, really. I think, you know, the future is going to be difficult, but it's going to be different. And we just got to try and resolve those problems. Yeah,
okay, great. In terms of the opportunity for private third sector partnerships in your vision, you know, I noticed there you've got a big scheme at Crewe, 400 odd units, different type of residential mix. Can you talk a little bit about the partnerships that Torus are going through? Is that changing, or is it more collaboration as you go forward? And, you know, pick one or two of your sites that is an exemplar, perhaps in the future, of how you see that panning out.
Yeah, I think hopefully Kate can pick up some examples, but I think, you know, these are big problems that we have to resolve, and we're not going to do it by ourselves. So we have to develop a lot closer partnerships, both with private and third sector organisations, and I think not necessarily partnerships that traditional housing associations have had in the past. I think it's certainly we're looking at kind of different ways to do things and different ways to resolve these problems that we've got, and we are dealing with. We are currently trying to develop different partnerships. One example that we've got at the moment is we've currently have a partnership with Liverpool City Region Combined Authority and the Manufacturing Technology Centre and Peel Holdings around retrofitting and energy efficient housing interventions. Now that's something that traditionally we wouldn't have looked at, and housing associations probably wouldn't have looked at partnerships like that. But to solve the problems that we've got, the massive problems that we've got, and the issues that we have, sustainability as one, going forward, we have to develop these new partnerships. And I think hopefully Kate will have some examples.
Yeah, I think you know, mentioned a few of them there. I think, you know, what has become important is you know, thinking about what we want from a site from the outset. So, you know, numbers are important, but, you know, when you're looking at existing communities and what that community needs to grow and become better, it is about the product as well. And while we have got a broad range of products in our portfolios, sometimes, you know, to make the right market intervention, and to kind of create that balance and impact on the housing market within a community, we need to partner with someone who's more experienced and, you know, in that area. So, you know, the Rossfield Park one is a really good example of where we've done that. That was a site that would benefit from a big element of sales as well as a big element of affordable, and we accepted that was best done through a collaboration with someone who can do that sales element. And we're looking at lots of similar examples now, certainly in some of the heartland areas and kind of, areas that for us, it's really challenging from a sales perspective because the cost of developing is more than the cost of the property value at the end. And that's where you get that kind of, partners who can build at that sort of scale, who can get them efficiencies and deliver market sales at that point in the market for the right price point. Whereas we can then focus on what we do best in terms of shared ownership, rent to buy, PRS and affordable rent, and what the kinds of intelligence-led demand data is showing us we should be doing. And again, Melwood is a really good example for that, not necessarily, totally different example in that it's not a housing delivery partner, but that partnership, what we decided was really important for that site was a community-led legacy. And the partnership we kind of facilitated and created is doing just that. It's educational, it's focused on community, and it's what that area needs. And we work quite hard in consultation with local residents to establish that need as well, because we don't know it all ourselves. These big communities that know the areas much better than we do, and the intelligence will only show us so much. So that engagement is really important as well in identifying the right partnerships.
Yeah, I sense that, Kate, just when you presented your Melwood, and there seems to be more of an emotional value that Torus are putting on, not just the quality of the product and the place, but how emotionally people engage with that placemaking piece. And Peter, it must have been something that the corporate plan recognised, and that shift of not just the product, but the whole emotional side of how a community feels and lives together. I'm just thinking, how far did you dig into that?
Well, absolutely. I mean, the feedback from our tenants and from our stakeholders created the corporate plan. So what their views and their feelings are helped create this. I think what we've got to consider though as well is this is all the backdrop of the pandemic. So we need to see how things are going to develop and how things will change perhaps coming out of the pandemic. Are we going to go back to how we were prior to the pandemic, or are things actually going to change, and people's aspirations and desires, and are they actually going to change going forward, or are we just going to go back to the way we were? It's probably going to be a mixture of both, I think, and we've taken that into account in the corporate plan. But obviously we've got to be able to steer that corporate plan towards the changing environment as well, if that changes differently to where we expect.
Yeah, thank you. Kate, anything to add? Or?
No, I think Peter covered it all in that, to be honest.
Interesting question just in here, guys. I'm just reading a few off. And, Torus's ambition for creating apprentices within those communities. So when families move in, it's not just the building skills element, but what's the kind of whole giving back to Torus in terms of the apprentices in those communities, and indeed what can we do to help you from the private sector?
Yeah, I mean that's a big strand, a huge strand for the Torus Foundation. So apprentices and also getting people back to work is a massive strand for our foundation. We invest an awful lot of money into that, and we do work in partnerships with other organisations to help us with that. So it will be the Torus Foundation will be the route for that, and obviously we do welcome any support from the private sector to help us in that. The foundation has expanded over recent years, and we see that expanding more. And worklessness and apprenticeships are a key driver to that foundation.
Yeah, it's interesting because we talk about the city region, and we live in the city region. And one of the things I hear a lot of from people outside the north when they come up is the sheer quality of the place of the city region, our coastlines, our communities, our schools. How much lobbying are Torus doing to government in terms of selling the city region and addressing the homes shortage? Clearly you're in touch with government because you're one of the biggest providers. What's your feeling, your side on that?
Well, I think sorry Kate, you interrupted you there.
No, I was just going to mention, I think obviously we are strategic partners Homes England. So that's our kind of, just say Mark has a big kind of one of the biggest housing providers in the Northwest. We are in a position of influence. Obviously, at the moment, it's quite difficult to influence with everything going on, and there's been lots of different changes. But that strategic partnership with Homes England is a really important partnership for us, because it is, everything you're talking about in terms of, basically raising some of these regional issues at a national level. And we've got really close links with the Liverpool City Region Combined Authority as well, the LEP, different regional bodies in other areas we're operational in. And we also have a seat at the table at National Housing Federation. We've got a partnership with the Manufacturing Technology Centre, which is a kind of pilot project that is, rooted in kind of MMC and just carbon zero agenda. And that's really about driving change and building the kinds of skill set and employment opportunities that are connected to that. So I think we've got them partnerships there, the influence is constantly being driven where it can be. And the group structure represents that as well, really.
So Peter, how do we harness that, and what's the risks on that trajectory looking forward? How do we build on those partnerships Kate said here in the city region, and what do you consider the risks as a business are moving forward?
I think what we need to bear in mind is kind of the government priorities at the moment are kind of falling our way, really, hopefully. So if you look at the topics such as the levelling up agenda, zero carbon, infrastructure and transport, all those policy decisions and policy movements could help us in this region. But I think the backdrop to all of this is economic uncertainty. So we're coming out of the pandemic, we've got Brexit, we've got lots of significant issues that could knock us off the path to all of these things that we wish to do. I mean, you look, for example, this morning, inflation has doubled in April unexpectedly. We're in a very, very uncertain world economically. I think that's the biggest risk for us all. I think that could knock us off our ambitious path, and we've got to try and make sure that doesn't happen. And I think particularly with the levelling up agenda, I think if that could move within our favour, then we need to use that, and we need to try and lobby at the highest level to actually make sure that the levelling up agenda doesn't fall off the edge because of the economic uncertainty. I think we're generally in a good position to look ahead with confidence, but I think the economic backdrop, I would say, is the main issue for us, so the main risk, I think.
Yeah, and just touching on that levelling up fund, and a lot of our city region are trying to get some success on that. How critical is that to our town centres and indeed the housing market? So if we take aside, what you guys do in terms of the housing element, getting our towns right and back active as community hubs, I assume that's only going to feed into your line, and the two go very much hand in hand.
Absolutely. I mean, we're active right across the region, both in obviously the main city of Liverpool, but also in towns, we're active Warrington, St Helens, and I think it's those towns that the levelling up agenda needs to address the issues there. And I think we're us as an organisation are extremely aware of that, and we're lobbying at every possible level that we can. But this is where it's about partnerships, and it's about us all getting together and all pushing in the same direction, and just trying to make sure that levelling up agenda, which is still a little bit words, there's not a lot of come out of it just yet, but we've still got to keep pushing and pushing to make sure that becomes a reality.
Yeah, Kate, anything from your side on that?
Yeah, I think, as Peter said, we're involved in several town centre master plans, and they tend to be within our heartland areas, and that's because basically you can't underestimate the value of what they do in terms of, it's the economic growth, it's the jobs, it's the employment. And we're supporting that by, certainly in the Warrington town centre, them early housing interventions. So you then kind of creating a market within them areas that then links with the jobs, and it's part of that like whole holistic growth of the centres then. But, the government backing on that is going to be really important.
It is a complete ecosystem. Everything's so intertwined here that it only takes one small element in the wheel to not be aligned and the whole thing breaks down. But it certainly feels like the momentum, and what I sense in the city region is we've probably got more of a togetherness than we've had over the last decade. You've talked about your relationships with the combined authority, Homes England, and may it long continue. I'm mindful of time, guys, and I'd like to try and wrap up with a final question, if I can, before we leave. And it was one for, what does Torus feel the region of the future looks like? So it's kind of you two trying to condense into a couple of sentences what our kind of future here looks like. It's a big question, but I always like to finish with a difficult one. I'll go to you first, Peter.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I think we an amalgamation of thriving, vibrant communities is how we'd like to see. Is our wish and our aspiration. It's going to be very difficult to get there, and this is why we need to be all working together. We need to be working in partnerships with each other. But it's about innovation and doing things a bit differently and solving problems and trying to solve problems as a region. I think quite often we kind of expect problems maybe to be sorted out for us, but I think we need to be sorting them out for ourselves. I think a lot more, which I know, and you mentioned earlier, it is happening, but we do need to make sure that we keep that going and we keep that push. But I think, yeah, thriving, vibrant communities is what we'd like to see.
Kate, yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it is a hard question to answer, really, especially at the moment. I think, regions of the future, it's about understanding. I think, we've made lots of progress in the Liverpool City Region since, the combined authorities come into play in terms of understanding the connectivity within the region. So it's about, that broader picture of, what's the role of different centres and what's the hierarchy of different centres within that overall kind of regional picture. And then how that links in with that ecosystem we were talking about, really. So accepting that the housing is integrally linked with the regeneration of town centres and transport infrastructure, and being able to see them different elements all coming together in an organic way and a planned way, and seeing that government investment coming forward to support that. I think, it'd be remiss not to say, a much greener place to live and to be, and part of that again is linked to that wider ecosystem, isn't it? It's about less reliance on cars because jobs are more local. We're not all driving throughout the centre, offices and everything else, and seeing that rebirth of the centre itself tied specifically to sustainability plans and a transport infrastructure that supports that. I think, on housing schemes specifically, there's a lot of work to do there, and there's a lot of challenges, because I don't think, the infrastructure and the framework we work within at the moment is quite ready there. So, some of these, some of our aspirations are a bit tied by the fact we're still working within, a predominantly gas infrastructure for new services. The planning system still insists on 2 car parking spaces per dwelling. Yeah. And we're trying to create a different environment that's connected and put these cases forward for changing and driving cultural change. But, we can only do so much within that. I think, the economic instability is a big issue, because obviously everything we're talking about does depend on big investment from a national level, and that's where that levelling up agenda is really important, really, and that leads to a kind of fair and more balanced region of the future as well. where beyond that regional, you can see that national picture again, and these growth of big cities outside of London and some of the southern areas. It's probably a long answer to a short question, but a much greener, fairer, well balanced and well connected place to live, really.
Great. Kate, Peter, it's been a fascinating hour. Our time's nearly up. We've had a good couple of topics covered there. From a professional Liverpool point of view, we represent a wide community, and the work you do is important here. And we very much enjoyed listening to both of you and your plans for the future of our city region. So from professional Liverpool, Kate and Peter, thanks very much. It'd be good to probably get you back in a year's time to make sure that corporate plan, you are smashing it, and we are holding you accountable to delivering these fantastic places and homes. So from professional Liverpool, thank you both very much, and everyone who was listening, thank you for joining us. I believe there is a follow-on session now with our commercial update at 10 o'clock, so you've got time for a quick break, but that's it from us. So thank you, Peter and Kate, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.